Welcome to Home Business TV. Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Capman, your host. Have you ever had a Wonderhell moment? A time when you have achieved success, which gives you an increased hunger for something bigger, which leads to a great deal of uncertainty, self-doubt, anxiety, and stress. According to best-selling author, international speaker, and renowned life coach, Laura Gassner Otting, success is wonderful, but it is also hell. So she has a new book, Wonderhell, which hits the shelves this April. So greetings, Laura Gassner Otting. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Please say hello.
Hello, and thank you for having me today.
Thanks for clicking in. And let's see a copy of that book. Cool.
There it is.
Nowadays, in the world of online, there's nothing like a good printed book. Well, where are you clicking in from today?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, cool.
From my home office in Boston, Massachusetts.
Of course, you're working from your home. We checked that before we start up the podcast. It has to have to be connected to a home office, being a home business. I used to get up to the Boston area here and there. Went to school in Connecticut. What part of Boston are you in? I know it's
we are just west of the city, so we're in Newton, which is like I could literally walk to the end of my block and be on the Boston border.
Oh, okay, cool. I used to make it up to Marblehead, but hey, thanks for joining us. Laura dares audiences to find their voice and generate the confidence needed to tackle larger-than-life challenges. And she wants to help you lead, manage, and mentor others to achieve increased business success. So, Laura Gassner Otting, let's get to know you better. Laura's TEDx on Wonderhell was chosen as an editor's pick and is approaching 1 million views and was featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Oprah Daily, Harvard Business Review, and others. A TEDx talk is a big deal. I'm still waiting for my call. Laura, how did you put a TEDx together?
Well, you know, as a speaker and as an author, my colleagues are other speakers and authors, and I was having a conversation for like a year with another author that I know, and finally he was like, all right, so it's time for you to take this idea and like bring it on stage and talk about it. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not ready, I don't think I can, I haven't really figured it out yet. And he's like, well, I told
all those excuses, you know,
all those excuses. He goes, well, I told the organizer of TEDx Reno about your idea and he wants you on the stage. So it's yours. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I guess I can apply. I'll think about it. He goes, no, you've already got it. Now you need to put the talk together. And so I was like, well, tell me, what'd you tell him? Because I don't even know what my idea is. But, you know, I've been talking about it. I think it's really important, and I know we're going to talk about this later, to surround yourself with the people in your life who bring out your best. And he's one of those people who knew that I had this idea, knew it was worth something, and didn't let it just.
Well, if he connected you with TEDx, was kind of the link there. He definitely is bringing out your best. Well, let's dive a little bit into your Wonderhell. Use the term imposter syndrome, which caught my eye. What exactly is this, and how can we overcome it?
So I think every one of us has felt this experience of imposter syndrome when we've accomplished something we didn't think we could accomplish. We got ourselves into a room we didn't think we could ever get ourselves into. We're pitching a deal we weren't ever sure we'd be up for. And then we walk in and we're like, I hope nobody realizes I don't belong here. Like, I hope nobody figures me out and figures out that I'm a fraud, right? We've all had
Okay, I didn't get it. Now it makes sense. I didn't understand what imposter meant. Okay, so it's like a mental barrier you're putting up on yourself.
Exactly. It's a mental barrier. And a lot of times when that happens, we talk ourselves out of going for the thing, right? Because we're like, oh, I don't belong. Somebody's going to tell me I shouldn't be pitching this deal. I shouldn't be trying to get this customer. I shouldn't be, trying to build my business this way. Inner self-doubt. So what do we do when we hear that? I mean, just think about the term itself, imposter syndrome. Like, oh, you're an imposter, you don't belong, you should leave. Syndrome, you must not feel so well, you must be sick, maybe you should lay down. Like, it's pretty offensive. And so we talk ourselves out of being there. And so the most important thing in these moments is to remind ourselves that imposter syndrome is it's not a limitation, it's actually an invitation.
Maybe it's something that's kind of wired into everybody too, to sort of just instinctively have doubts, or set up these kind of imposter barriers, and they don't even know it's running in their subconscious.
Well, of course, because if you're going to do something you've never done before, of course you feel like you're not ready, you're uncertain, you have doubts, right? So, but we have this voice inside of our head that's going, oh my God, I haven't done this before. When really we should be hearing that voice as, oh my gosh, I haven't done this before. So it's actually this invitation to do even more. I mean, we think of imposter syndrome as these slings and arrows we have to like swallow down and absorb, but really that's the best sign I know that I'm on the right track.
All right, so I'm not being an imposter then by doing this podcast. All right, you've reaffirmed my confidence here. Well, Laura, I do believe in luck or fate, but how can you make your own luck through manifestations and hard work?
Yeah, so I used to think that people were just born lucky, people were just born unlucky, and I used to think that manifestation was actually nonsense. It turns out there's science behind both of them. And the science is this: you can make yourself lucky if you just act like a lucky person acts. So how do lucky people act? They say yes to things. They put themselves out there. They're extroverted. They see negatives and turn them around for the positives. Like, oh, I made a mistake here. Great. What a learning opportunity. Now, I am not an extrovert, right? So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, extrovert,
No, wait a minute. I got to call you on that one.
I know. I make my living speaking in public, but the truth is I speak in public to 5,000 people, 10,000 people, but I'm not actually engaging with humans. I'm speaking at them and they say their part, but their part is quiet. And then I go back to my hotel room and I get in fetal position and I order room service and I watch Netflix. So, it's actually kind of funny. Like the majority of keynote speakers I know are actually fairly introverted people. So I can pretend to be an extrovert. I can play the extrovert role when I have to for 45 minutes on stage, and then I go and I hide. But that's exactly the same
it's
thing
kind
with
of a
luck.
yin and a yang then, or something.
Absolutely. So if you're somebody who identifies as introverted, you can still pretend to be an extrovert. You can act as an extrovert does during that half hour or during that 45 minutes or during that hour that you need to. And then you can go back. It's kind of like you're being like a situational luck
Like an
tourist.
imposter, maybe. I don't know. Try to twist that around when.
So right, so that's luck, and then manifestation is fascinating. Like I used to think it was nonsense, and then I learned here's the science behind it. Our brains take in 50 million bits of data every single second. Sorry, 11 million bits of data every single second, but we're only able to like actually understand 11 of them.
I can do like 100 bits a minute, maybe.
So here's the thing, like if you're like, I want to fly to Japan, but I can't afford to go there, but then you cut out beautiful pictures of pagodas and cherry blossoms, put them on your vision board. The next day you might see a bus going by with a half-price ticket to Japan. Did you manifest that bus out of nowhere? No, you just told your brain that out of all the millions of bits of data that it's getting every single second, that's the one that it should pluck out and show you. So it's just being more intentional about what you want.
So it's all there. You just got to be more self-aware.
It's all there. You just don't see it because you're busy taking in all the other things that you told you. And if you're telling your brain life is terrible, everything is hard, nobody ever calls me back, I'm having a hard time with my business, you're going to just see those things. Right. But you're just going to see those things. But if you say opportunity is everywhere, there's customers everywhere, there's clients everywhere, there's opportunities to go to Japan everywhere, suddenly you see them because your brain is actually, you've told your brain to notice those things. So I think that's pretty fascinating because I didn't know that was, I just thought the secret was nonsense, but it turns out it
does make sense. It's kind of the military was setting up the battlefield for success, and you've got to look at everything out there. But there is an old saying that perfection is the enemy of good enough. Laura, how can we quiet those dastardly perfectionist tendencies to allow ourselves to fail?
One of so I talked to 100 different glass ceiling shatterers and Olympic medalists and startup unicorns and everyday people like you and me when I wrote this book. And what I was amazed at was that they've all figured out how to deal with their perfectionist tendencies in ways that were actually pretty healthy. And the ones that were the best at it were actually the artists and the athletes. So the ones that like had to perform in the moment. And I would ask them, like I had this one, Olympic gold medalist freestyle skier. And I was like, how do you do it? What do you think about when you're up there, like in the blocks, like ready to go? And he's like, nothing. I said, nothing. Like, how can you think about nothing? And he said, I earned my medals in practice. I just picked them up on race day.
I would
And
think
I
you'd be
thought
like
that,
visualizing crossing the finish line in first place or something, but just
no, because
total
that's all
present.
part of practice. So the people who are perfect in performance don't think about perfection on performance day. They think about the perfection of habits along with the
Okay.
training. So he perfected the visualization of going through the finish line during practice. He perfected all of the work he was doing in practice. So when he was sitting at the starting blocks, he didn't have to think, am I going to be perfect? Am I not going to be perfect? What's going to go wrong? He was like,
That
I trust.
uncertainty and anxiety is kind of gone away through practice. Maybe, the kind of the muscle memory.
Gone. I don't know if you ever saw the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. And in that documentary, they said, well, were you ever nervous? Like you twice you did it, and like, could you three-peat? Is it going to happen? And he was like, no, I was never nervous because I trusted my skills. I know I did the work. I know I put in the practice. I trusted my skills. I knew we'd be fine.
Let's get in a little bit on that anxiety. A source of anxiety in business is lack of certainty. But how can we really manage those uncertainties and our what ifs?
Yeah, so I've taught a lot of courses on entrepreneurship, and there's always somebody in the back of the room who's like, you started a lot of businesses. What would you do if you failed? And so I'd always turn the question around, and I'd be like, well, you're sitting here in an entrepreneurship class. You want to be an entrepreneur. You've got a business plan, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, what will you do if you fail? And the answer was always, oh, well, I'll go back to get a job. I'll go to a cubicle. I'll figure it out. And then I'll start up another, I'll figure out another business plan. And I'm like, great. So you've got a plan B. What will you do if you succeed? And then it's always crickets. There's always crickets. And so what happens is we spend so much time as business owners worrying about the what ifs that we forget to think about, well, what's going to happen if I succeed? What happens if I do get the client? And what's the first hire? What's the second
Yeah, I mean,
hire?
I
How do I
remember
grow
a
my business?
business can fail just as easily succeeding too fast. You don't have the infrastructure in place to ride
Absolutely.
that wave.
Absolutely. And so if you're not taking advantage of opportunity that's in front of you, you're more likely to fail than if you're just, not doing anything at all. And so I think a lot of times it's not even the like, how do you deal with the what ifs? It's how do you, we all know what we're going to do, right? We know what we're going to do if we don't get the call, if the client fires us, like we all have a plan B. So, okay, you got your plan B, put it in the drawer. Don't think about it anymore. Let's focus on the plan A.
No, that is a good way of looking at it. It seems like, yeah, I was from the military, and it was always like a plan. Like, what do you do uh, when things go wrong? And yeah, I mean, it just seems like you've got to also have a plan in place if things are going right.
Right.
Well,
And you have to have a plan in place for if things go in a completely different way. I mean, what do they say? Like everyone's got a plan till the bullets start flying,
yeah,
like it's so like once you're there, what is it? What is it? Commander's intent, right? Like
right,
what is the plan? Like we know we need to storm the beach to,
right.
save the citizens of the town. Well, when we get there, we don't know what we're going to see. So we have to be prepared for anything, but just understanding what the goal is. And so I think, a good way to sort of deal with some of the uncertainty is to always remember why you're doing this. I mean, I started a home business 20 years ago. I started an executive search firm operating out of my living room. It was me, my 6-week-old baby, and my Dalmatian. And that 6-week-old baby is now a sophomore in college. The Dalmatian is long gone. And I also built that business and sold it to the women who helped me build it 6 years ago. So I ran it for 15 years, all out of my home, all out of
Well, it
their
sounds like
homes.
you had a plan for success. Well,
Well, I
another big
didn't.
challenge in starting a business is, getting back to that ability to learn. You're talking about that entrepreneur course. How can we, better learn from others? And you bring out a really good point here. You have to accept once again that you're a beginner.
You do have to accept that you're a beginner. One of the things the reason I knew I needed to leave that business that I founded was 10 years into it. I kind of mailed it in, and a pretty big pitch. And I just got lazy. I got complacent. I had been doing it long enough that I knew what I was doing. And I said to a friend later, I just got sick of pitching. And he said, no, he goes, you got sick of winning. Like, it just wasn't new. It wasn't challenging. And when I did that, I realized it was time for me to leave. Like, if
Well,
you're
you got
not,
sick of winning?
I got sick of winning. I got sick of winning, because I knew how to do it. And so I stopped preparing as well. And
Oh,
I
so
would,
if you're kind of struggling, you're having a day to day in the moment, figure out how to do things better. But once you get on top and you're winning, then you're saying you kind of lose that day to day impetus
yeah.
then.
I mean, I have never been so incentivized to work hard than when I was scared out of my mind. Am I going to make the pitch? Am I going to make my nut this month? Am I going to make my mortgage, right? Like, what's going to happen with this business that I founded? Once things were fine and, we were doing well enough and everything's great, I got a little lazy. And I think a lot of people who run their own businesses find themselves in this place where they're like, it's pretty good. It's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I got some, competing interests for my time right now. So like, if I don't get that one, it's okay. Or I think
Right.
I know enough to get that one and it's fine. And I got a little, I rested on my laurels. I got a little complacent, and we got the pitch. I was very lucky, luckier than I should have been, but I have been doing this at this point for 10
But
years
you
for
had some
myself.
self-awareness, that
Yes.
critical point of having self-awareness. You saw that was happening and
But
recognized
had
it.
I not, had self-awareness, I mean, look, I got lucky. We got the work. I got luckier than I should have. But had I not had that self-awareness and then I did it again and again and again, it would have been malpractice. I would have ruined my reputation, my firm's
Entrepreneurial
reputation.
malpractice.
Absolutely. I mean, it would have been bad for the client, it would have been bad for me, it would have been bad for my people. And I literally, on the elevator on the way down from that pitch, I called my business partner. I'm like, I think maybe it's time for me to go. I
Ooh.
think it's time, because I had realized that I'd gotten to that point where I no longer had a beginner's mindset and I was just starting
Mhm.
to mail it in.
How did he take the news?
He was a she, and
She.
she went through all 7 stages of grief. First, she was in denial, then she was angry with me. Separating from a partner is difficult. It is really difficult. And eventually, we came around, and the firm is doing great. They're thriving. I should have left years earlier, but it was hard because I think a lot of times when you have a partnership, one person is the outside person and one person is the inside person. And I
Right.
had come to the realization that the firm didn't need an outside person anymore. We were getting every pitch we
That
pitched. We
yin
were
and
great.
yang again. It's
Yes.
well,
So, the firm needed somebody else. And that's a difficult place to be as an entrepreneur.
well, you still friends with her?
Yes.
That's good. Well, let's talk community a little bit. A high hurdle in working from home is building outside support communities. Laura, how do we create a community of those who bring out our best and cut out those who don't?
Yes. So I think that there are a lot of people in our lives who are there because they've always been there, but they're not necessarily there because they should be there now. And some of those people love you. They don't want to see you get hurt. And so they tell you not to take any chances. Some of those people are jealous of you. They see your rise and all they see is their own stagnation. So they're sort of smiles in the front and knives in the back. And some of those people are just scared, right? You run into them at the coffee shop and you're like, I'm going to start this home business. And they're like, no, you can't do that. That's too scary. When really what they mean is, I can't do that. I'm too scared. And so we have to really
Oh,
think
they're
about the
projecting
people.
yeah, look at they're projecting themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So either like they love you and the last time they knew you, like the last time I lived in the same house as my parents, I was 17 years old. Like I brought the car back late for curfew, of course, empty on gas, but with the radio like at full volume. So I'm 52 right now. And when I'm like, I'm going to sell the search firm and I'm going to, do this other thing, my parents are like, you can't do that. Like, what do you, because they just don't remember me with the frontal lobe. Like I didn't have the capacity to do those things then. They hold me in their heart, but they don't know my heart anymore, right? So they have my best interest at heart, but they don't know me. So there are a lot of people in our lives and we have to think about who's there, because while there is no science behind that you're the average of the 5 people you keep closest to you, there is a lot of science about the people who are inputs for you. So anybody, they don't have to be necessarily proximate to you, but if they're people who you read their stuff every day, you listen to their podcasts every day, you're reading all of their books, you are being influenced by those people. So think about the people who are influencing you. Are they further along on the path that you want to take? Or are they not even on that path at all? Like there are so many business coaches out there that are like, let me tell you how to do it. And I'm like,
So
before
those are
you tell
ones
me
you
what
want
to
to cut
do,
from the team then.
yeah, like before you tell me what to do, show me what you've done. That's what I
Yeah.
want to know. Cut them from the team, right?
And
Hashtag
what is
show me
that?
your
What you're
P&L.
saying, what you're doing talk so loud to me I can't hear what you're saying? I don't know. I heard that one somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so look, there are people in my life. I try to keep three different types of people in my life. The aspirationals, right? The ones who I want to be them when I grow up, right? These are the ones who know me, who see me, who know that I'm chasing their star, and they never let me settle for mediocrity. They know that there is more in me and they continue to push me. Then there are my peers, the ones that are in the foxhole with me. These are the ones to whom I complain. These are the ones to whom I vent. These are the ones that I learn from, that I teach, that we work together, we cheerlead each other. And then there are the mentees, right? The ones that are further behind who want to be me, right? I'm their aspirational. And the best way to get rid of that imposter syndrome and that doubt and that uncertainty is to answer questions from somebody who wants to be you when they grow up, because it reminds you like, oh yeah, I do know something. Cool. I'm going to be okay.
Well,
So
I
I
think
try to
I
think
want to
about
be
those
one of
people.
your I want to be one of your mentees. I'm trying to figure out where I fit into all. Well, so Laura, as we head to wrapping things up, what is one thing a podcast listener should do tomorrow morning to overcome his or her imposter syndrome?
Well, I would say I would think about who is telling you that you're an imposter. So, are there people who are there that are making you feel like you don't belong? Or is it just the voice inside of your head that's telling you that? And if it's the voice inside of your head that's telling you that, then I would go to school a little bit on where that came from. And I would remind yourself that everything that got you to here might not get you to where you want to be, but it is certainly a strong enough foundation on which you can stand from here. You were successful in other parts of your life, which goes to show me that you will probably be successful in this part of your life too, because you understand how to get better and how to succeed.
Outstanding. Well, Laura Gassner Otting, this has been a great discussion on your success and achieving one's own wonder hell. Do you have any final points you'd like to share?
I would just say that if you were feeling in that moment of like, oh my God, I think I do have Wonderhell, congratulations, because Wonderhell only shows itself to people who are capable of more. If you didn't have the burden of your potential staring at you, giving you the hell part of the Wonderhell, you wouldn't actually feel it. So congratulations that there's more inside.
Well, I'm glad because I feel that hell right now. So maybe it's going to bring out the best in me. Well, Laura Gassner Otting, thank you for joining us today on the Home Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
To learn more about Laura and her book, Wonderhell, please visit lauragassnerotting.com or our podcast website for more information on guests. Thanks for joining us in this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at our website, homebusinessmag.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, read the Home-Based Business Startup Guide. For more info, visit homebusinessmag.com or homebusinessexpo.com. I'm Richard Capman Anderson saying anchors away. We'll talk with you soon. Until then, make it a great home-based wonder hell day. Thank you for watching Home Business TV.